So, Mr. Wijnand Freling, so feel nice, feel better, feel at home, and thank you very much to be here with us, to enjoy us, to know about the Stucco-ceilings with molded ornaments in Netherlands, development, materials, and restoration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexander. Good afternoon. I will take you in this lecture to the north, to the Netherlands. We have old ceilings, old plaster ceilings in the Netherlands, and the red thread in this lecture are the casted elements I have found on different ceilings and walls in the Netherlands. We go back to the 16th century. In Dordrecht, we have a stucco ceiling built up in clay and mud, and the finishing layer is a lime layer with impressed ornaments and also little ornaments casted and put on the ceiling. You see in the middle the year 1562, and in the middle a lion head, and the lion head is from plaster, and it's put on. So we have in that plaster cast elements, we have the lion heads and also some flower bulbs. The other elements are pushed in with a stample or something else. And here you see some other ceilings where they, after restoration, where you can see the elements up of the surface. They are plaster cast, and in the surface they are pushed in it. Otherwise, you see also rosettes in another plaster ceiling in Zutphen, near the east border with Germany, and we see that there was one of the men, the craftsman who made this ceiling, came from Kleef, and Kleef is near a town, little town near Sessão, just on the other side of the border. On the left high, you see the rosette. A quarter was missing, and it was also plaster cast, so we could make a mold and put it back. In Utrecht, I found a lot of ceilings in this structure. You see on your right, we found how it is. I've made an inventarization what was rest, and we have made a reconstruction on the left. That's very easy with the Renaissance stucco ceilings. They're symmetric, they are repetent elements, so you can, with less knowledge, you can reconstruct them. And then we go to the 17th century. We found some chimney posts, plaster cast on several places in the Netherlands, in the north, in Dikkemarstaten, and Rotterdam. After the bombardment, we found it in the rubbish. In Eestveen, they're the same as in Dikkemarstaten, and we found some others in Leiden. And during my dissertation, I found also some written about old plaster making and casting. And here, Frank van Bergheij, an important book for the Netherlands, The Art of Plaster Making and Casting, brought over from Italy. It's still alive and kicking here, and it's practiced fairly accurately in Holland. And then, however, when it comes to making forms of sculpture, we have long since surpassed them. I know that most of the forms of sculptures that the Italians walked the street with came from old Dutch sculptors. So they use them, but they were made in Holland. Van der Meijs, famous plaster or plaster foundry in Leiden, supplied them from time to time with forms and sculptures that they applied all over the country. And Van der Meij starts its business in the midst of the 17th century, and the son ended the business in the first quarter of the 18th century. So there must be a period in Holland that are lots of casted elements, casted architectural ornaments were used in interiors to enrich the interior. Here you see the plaster cast of the chimney pots in Dekemarstraat. Here the remainings of the chimney pots in Rotterdam. They are burned. The surface is burned, so it's really black, but the figures are really good. And then I've tried to make to see what we have in Holland on prefab companies, specially made for the architectural ornaments in architecture. So that's others than the sculptures for education and so on. And in this, especially I look to the Netherlands, but I see also in other countries in Europe, they're made also the same catalog to have some trade and can communicate with architects, with owners, and so on. On the left, you see a catalog leaflet from Wijnand, from France. There you see the sculptures, and on the right you see one of the biggest plaster casting companies in Europe, and also one of the oldest. It's in London. It's founded in 1760, mind you. So you sit in the mid-18th century, and they built it out till today, and cast all of the things, and just not only for England, but they export it all over the world. And there they have their own craftsmen. They will put it on ceilings, on walls, and so on. In Holland, it's just something simple. We have Freling as one of the pioneers in prefabricated casted plasterwork. He made a big catalog. He was an engineer from Delft. Go to Amsterdam, and there he started his business in making prefab casted elements for ceilings. And they did it very well. You see on the left side, one side of the leaflet, you see the photographs of the ornaments, and he gave also a proposition on the other side, what you need for a ceiling, what kind of measurements, what you need, elements, and so on. And on the right, you see some mother molds. That are the molds they made positive. So you have to cast them for a negative, and then you can cast derivative elements you need. Sometimes it goes wrong in the Netherlands. Here, it was a real puzzle to find out. They had demolished 4 ceilings in this house, and I've made a reconstruction of them. I've put out the ornamental elements. I've put it out, and this is then the result after reconstruction. Also, we have reconstructed the paint on it. There are some plaster collections in Holland. We have seen yesterday something of the plaster collection from Maastricht. Another collection, it's in Utrecht, in the museum. And here you see the architectonical ornaments they have. Lots of them came from London. You see it on the right side. Here from Maastricht. So Maria Melkert has a lot to do to make a good inventory of it. Here the others. And this one I will show you because when you use the sculpture in the hall, in the interior, they will most of the time paint it white. But when you use it for in other ways, you see that they will finish with another color. You see the head of the lady. I think that's the best for education. Then you see more in detail in light and shadows. And the right one was a reparation, was cleaning up, and then coated with an other film, and then you see with a lot of expression. Then we go to Wassenaar, the Pauw. It's a country house. The owner in the mid-19th century was Prince Frederik of Nassau. His father was King Willem Guillaume I of the Netherlands. And there was a very important relation to Prussia, to Berlin. So he asked Herman Wenzel, an architect from Berlin, to come to Wassenaar, and enlarge the country houses, ballroom, some other rooms, and asked him also to decorate the interior. The interior was decorated by Willem Friedrich Dankberg, sculpture and plastercaster in Berlin. He had more than 50 workers, so it's a rather big firm. And he made a very interesting frieze in the ballroom. And when you see his atelier, you see at the left side, in the highest base, you see something of the frieze. I will see you here in real. It's around in the ballroom. It's near about 40 meters long, with little scenes in it, repetitive, and also in another room had made some millions. Here you see the cove and the frieze with the repetitive and plaster casted figures in it. Also the rest of the ceiling are also pre-casted elements, pushed them in and built it up in this way. We have made 5 years ago an inventarization. What will we see around the walls in this ballroom? And we have seen that the repetitive elements is, but they are just free. Dus we see not always in the same way that we rounded up. The same frieze, just a little bit later, has been applied in Schwerin in the castle, in the billiard room. So he used his molds several times to make a nice illustration of the middle. Here you see some parts of it. And you see this in the 19th century, in the school of Schinkel from Berlin. It's just active to make architectural ornaments on outside, on walls, but also inside in the architecture. Wenzel is one of them, of that school that did it. And you see in the end of the 19th century, it's diminished, and in the 20th century, it's over. So then we lost the interest of enriching the architecture and interior with ornaments. And here, the spires Dankberg made. It's, I think, the web is maybe a good presumable conclusion of the yesterday and today what I've heard here in this congress. We have lines of education, of sculpture, of architecture, of restoration, and it comes here all together. Thanks.